Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Jim Cornette Experience, the podcast hosted by the most beloved and the most hated and reviled man in all of professional wrestling and the Twitterverse. And today on the program, what a program, because ding dong, the witch is off TV. Plus, we're going to talk about more old-time wrestlers' pay information. You think the guys today make money? Some of them. Listen to what Gorgeous George used to make. Plus, comedy in wrestling. How should it be done? We will have a discussion concerning this. To join me in all this, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you, the post office playboy, the proprietor of the French Toast Chateau, your friend and mine, and the court jester of the cult of Cornette. He's a hilarious guy, folks. Brian Last, the great Brian Last.
Waka waka. Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again.
Waka waka?
I'm a hilarious guy. Who's hilarious? Fozzie Bear.
Oh, good Lord.
Did you like the Muppets? Were you too old to enjoy the Muppets? Even though they're for all ages, technically.
I was a little old when the Muppets came along, but, you know, every once in a while, you know, the Kermit and the Miss Piggy, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, or the Rainbow Connection, or what the fuck was that song? That, you know, it permeated culture.
Clearly, it permeated your mind there.
It permeated me. Well, we're going to permeate some people today. More on that later, too. You know, how can a person as beloved and respected and admired and revered and iconic, such as myself, also be so hated and reviled and repulsed? And, you know, no more Mr. Nice Guy. No more Mr. Clean. No more Mr. Nice Guy. He's sick. He's obscene. Anyway, speaking of obscene people, that noted, well, I don't even know if I can say this word now. I might offend the cunt lobby. So I'll say the noted Starr UNT. No, wait, I spelled it all the way out. It's Starr, and I never was good at this, folks. Dana Loesch, our old friend of the program, is off TV along with the entire NRA TV channel. They're gone. They're done. They're off TV. Not only the National Russia Association, of course, for the new listeners, we have in the past talked about how that, you know, soulless ghouls like Dana Loesch drink the blood of murdered children by facilitating the sale of guns and the complete lack of restrictions on same and lobby against it, etc. And her husband got quite pissed at me. Remember Snidely?
Snidely.
Snidely. Well, his name is Chris, but he's got one of those goddamn mustaches that stick way out. It's a gimmick mustache, and he's her business manager / you know, he's like the Mark Marrow to Sable. He carries her bags, whatever. And he would fire back at me every once in a while, but she blocked me. But they can't be happy, obviously, because now not only is their TV show off the, and see, they apparently, this is one of those Turner Home Entertainment, Turner Broadcasting schemes, where one company, World Championship Wrestling, pays some of the wrestlers, but Turner Entertainment was paying some of the others. The advertising agency for the NRA was the ones that were funding and, or I mean, it all, you know, it's all part of the same thing. But the advertising agency was putting NRA TV on the air, and she technically worked for them.
Right.
And now the advertising agency and the NRA are suing each other, and they're in a big hoo-ha. So the TV show's done. They've been losing money. They've saying they were on the verge of distinction. Yeah, they wish. The verge of extinction, which I thought was kind of like Ian Rotten. Every 3 months or so, he'd say, if you don't buy tickets to the next show, I'm going to go out of business. And everybody's like, please. But that went on for 15 years. But, you know, but apparently, anyway, the NRA is walking recklessly and attempting to fall. They're on the fucking rocks. So bye-bye, Dana. It couldn't happen to a nicer, as somebody tweeted this, to a nicer person, it couldn't happen. I want to apologize to a guy named Newman from apparently last week's. No, this wasn't even on.
I know where you have to be going with this.
Yeah. On last week's, I think, drive-through, you know, you said something, I can't even remember what it was, but in frustration, you know, if you're a Seinfeld fan, you know that every once in a while, Jerry would utter the expletive Newman. So, you know, I said that about something interspersed with what you were commenting on, just Newman. And just, we went on. But apparently this guy named Newman was listening to the podcast. I don't know if he was on drugs at the time, but suddenly in this other unrelated conversation, when his name just beamed through on the show to him in his headphones, he thought he was, it may have been the bad acid. We'll talk about that in a minute also, bad acid. But
hey, I got a note from this past week's show also. Chuck Langerman got in touch with me because remember the question came up, where were you when Lex Luger jumped to WCW Nitro? And you said you didn't remember. No, you did remember, but you didn't remember where we were when Medusa showed up on TV.
Yes, and through the garbage can.
And he said, it was December 18th, 1995, and that was the only time in my life I met Jim. Dennis Carluzzo took me and Frank Chili to WWE Raw in Newark, Delaware, on the campus of the University of Delaware.
Oh my God, I remember that.
After the matches, Dennis, Frank, Jim, Jerry Lawler, and myself got a bite to eat at Denny's.
Yes.
Jim delivered the famous quote there that, again, things change over time, but Medusa couldn't sell pussy on a troop train. And Jerry Lawler cursed out our male waiter for talking about wrestling being fake.
I remember, and I'll tell you why. And by the way, I'm sorry, Deucey. It was in the heat of the moment. You'd done something to the other side for the other side. But I love Medusa. But we were sitting there. I remember this specifically because it was the greatest delivery of a fucking line and the greatest facial reaction to it that I've ever seen. Because we're all sitting there and it's in Denny's and we're not, it's me and Lawler, as I think was the only wrestling personnel there. I mean, Dennis Corluzzo, but not obviously on camera wrestling people. But we're not, like being boisterous like the Nasty Boys are sitting at the table or anything, but we're all talking and, it was quiet enough because we were some of the only people in there that we could hear the fucking waiter. If one of the waiters talked to the other one and mentioned those guys are wrestlers, and the other guy, and loud enough for us to hear it, the other waiter said, "Oh, school, college wrestling, or the fake stuff, right? That type of thing." And Lawler heard that, and he looked over at the guy, caught his eye, and he said, "Hey, fuckface." And when he said, "Hey, fuckface," you should have seen the color drain out of this fucking guy. And he said, "Come here. What did I just hear you say?" I was just talking to that. No, I believe I heard you say something about my profession that I make my living at and that I've competed in wrestling and worked in for, 25 years now, whatever the time period was at this particular point. It's still a long time. And he, well, I just, I used to wrestle a little bit in college, and you used to wrestle a little. He did the fucking interview. You used to wrestle a little bit in college. Well, let me tell you something, pal. I just wrestled on national television, and I don't consider it a joke, and I don't like people, especially people that I actually was about to tip before that comment, saying it's fake and knocking it when they don't know what they're talking about. And he dressed it, and the guy just slunk off. And it was one of the greatest, hey, fuck face. And the guy just, oh.
Well, there's more to Chuck's note here. I would think Jim would at least remember Lawler going off on the waiter because he had a huge look of amazement on his face. Actually, the funniest thing that happened that night was on the way home. It was 2 a.m. in the morning, and Dennis was going 95 miles per hour on I-95. A cop stopped us. Dennis went into a humorous story about having a serious prostate problem and was speeding to avoid pissing in his pants. The cop started laughing, shook his head, and walked away without ticketing him. Only Dennis Carluzzo.
Yes, the famous prostate excuse. Oh my God! Well, yeah. Well, then that was what
95, December 95.
95, the same night as. Well, no wonder I didn't. No, it was because I obviously didn't see it that same night. I remember seeing Luger because I was, sitting there at home watching it, but I was elsewhere employed. But anyway, So we apologize.
I mean, that line you delivered. No, again, no offense, Medusa. Medusa couldn't sell pussy on a troop train. You ever feel weird, like, delivering a line like that in front of Lawler? Because he is, like, the master of the one-liner. And you've stolen so many of his.
Oh, and I freely admit it. I mean, but here's the thing. And I mean, all respect to Jerry, but he didn't write the majority of them himself either. We both have done this, but he had done this for years. He got those all. I have the Milton Berle joke file, right? No, it's like 1,000 pages. Milton Berle, all his years in vaudeville and TV and movies, kept a file, and they actually published it. It's a 1,000-page thing of just one-liners and jokes, and a lot of them are garbage. But there was the old fucking, JR used to joke about the Henny Youngman joke book. All of the old Borscht Belt comics and stand-up comics and the joke books they used to put it, he obviously perused many of those and saved me the trouble of researching some of them. And then I got into some more. So it's just, but we did one time before I even got into business. I was a photographer and I'd ridden with Lawler and Jerry Calhoun. Where the fuck? It was somewhere in Memphis. We went to a spot show, and then I went back to Nashville with Lawler, and we went to Louisville the next day. I remember Danny Davis rode up with us. Nevertheless, it was 1982, so we started playing the Rodney game, where you go around the car and you do a Rodney line, right? Rodney Dangerfield. Because everybody knows how, Lawler was a huge fan of even went to New York when he did the Letterman show and got his picture taken with Rodney Dangerfield, a prick. I was jealous of him. Anyway. So you go around and you do a Rodney line. Well, Jerry Calhoun was out in the fucking second round, and me and Lawler went another hour, and finally I actually won. And I'm still just a photographer. I wasn't smart. I didn't realize not only is he Lawler, he's the booker at the time, I think. But I didn't, he didn't like put me out of the car, but I didn't realize until I actually got into business and they smartened me up further that I probably should have put him over with a couple to spare. But but the thing is, he was on the road every night wrestling. All I had to do in those days was be the photographer and watch Rodney fucking tapes. So,
did you ever hear what Rodney said when Lawler showed up at Dangerfields over on First Avenue?
No, what?
Hey, fuckface.
No, goddamn! I thought you had a scoop. Anyway, real quickly, the wildlife update. We have 5 deer. We have 2 babies, we have 2 mamas, and we have apparently the male of the family who is obviously maybe they're Mormons. I don't know, because he's the only male deer that we've seen.
Lover Doe Dennis,
beautiful Bambi and sweet stag. So anyway, I don't know. Wait a minute, does are deers, a female deer, and a ray is a drop of golden sun. Okay,
sorry.
Anyway, we got 5 deer. We also have the raccoon family. They're fatter than ever because they're stealing the deer feed. There's 4 of those. We got the regular birds and squirrels. We have the moles that I'm really not happy with and won't go away. They're tearing up the yard everywhere. And we have a chipmunk family of cute little chipmunks living in a hole under the back walk around behind the living room window. So that's the update on the wildlife.
We've got a whole family of chipmunks now, too. Suzanne was warning me something about them the other day, and now I can't remember for the life of me what she said.
Are chipmunks dangerous?
There was something about them. I don't know if they were dangerous to me as a human or dangerous to the house, but there was something. That's why I'm trying not to say too much. I don't know if it was something like they'll eat the wood, or I don't remember what it was, but she said something the other day, and because I don't pay any attention to what she says, I have no idea what she said. There's something with chipmunks. Beware. That's all I can say right now.
Be careful. The accusations that you make here on the internet about people, unfounded accusations can come back to haunt you. So don't accuse a whole chipmunk of a species before you have all the facts.
Okay, I apologize to all the chipmunks here in New Jersey and Chippendale and
Alvin. Seymour. Was Seymour a chipmunk?
Alvin and the Chipmunks, yeah. Alvin, Simon, Theodore. Who's Seymour?
Oh, it was, well, that's why. What if Seymour was the one they cut from the group right when they got signed?
I guess so.
We never heard too much about Seymour. Anyway, that was years ago. And speaking of which, do you know what 1969 is?
I do.
That is 50 years ago. It is the 50th anniversary of 1969, a pivotal year in American culture, a pivotal year in music, a pivotal year in sports, et cetera, and you know that 1969 was the debut of Woodstock, right? The Woodstock, the first major big rock concert, festival concert. Well, not the first major one, I guess, but the big one. When you think of a music festival, you think of Woodstock, right?
I do, yes.
Guess what? And I remember, and this has been years ago. I guess this was the 80s, right around the time I got, my first VCRs. Rhino Records. You've obviously you know who they are. You're the music guru, but Rhino Records. I'm old enough to remember when they started out as like they released the Dr. Demento stuff and the wild, wacky, weird videos and tracks. There was a lot of wrestling stuff. The Crusher song, but it was the Novas. Yep. Fred Blassie, Pencil Neck Geek, and Rhino Records was for the cool, either nostalgia or counterculture stuff. But now, I guess they've been around longer than Ford Motor Company now, and they're a big fucking deal. And listen to what they've done. They have issued, and I can't wait to get my grubby paws on one of these, but they have issued the 50th anniversary, biggest, greatest, limited edition Woodstock CD box in fucking history. 38 CDs. There are only 1,969 of these sets and they're numbered, that they're even going to manufacture. 38 CDs, 36 hours of music, 20 hours of previously unreleased stuff, 432 tracks. I'm reading this off the fucking advertising. 267 tracks previously unreleased. A high-def Blu-ray of the Woodstock documentary that won an Oscar. The Woodstock 3 Days of Peace and Music, a new book from one of the co-creators, Michael Lang, a replica of the original and apparently never used festival program, a guitar strap, the same brand as Hendrix used, 2 photo prints by a legendary rock photographer, all this stuff in this box. And it's not only the music, they have basically all of the ambiance, I guess you'd call it, of the festival and all the announcements, and people make fun of it. Stan Lane used to fucking do the fucking Woodstock announcements when we would travel in the car with the Midnight Express. He'd be doing whatever you do, don't take the brown acid or whatever. And this actually has all those recordings, and we have some that we're going to play for the entertainment of our listeners in the cult, because you've got the PA announcements. They even include this stuff. It's like the entire audio record of the Woodstock Festival, but the PA announcements that you've culled some of them that degenerate from calm to chaos in over the 3 days. Can you? Is that the best way to describe it?
That's a pretty good way of describing it. Let's get going. The first voice you'll hear will be the calm voice of Woodstock, Chipmunk. Speaking of chipmunks, actually. Chipmunk, that's his actual name. Here's his voice, and it will go from here.
Anyone needing medical treatment in White Lake, please see Dr. Dombeck. Dr. Dombeck. The brown house next to the Citgo station on 17B in White Lake. Anyone needing medical treatment in White Lake, please see Dr. Dombeck. His office is the brown house next to the Citgo station on 17B. Puppet Theater will be going on at the Hog Farm at 6:15 for those of you that would like to join them. The Puppet Theater will be going on at the Hog Farm at 6:15. Penny Pepper, please call your mother at the Margin Tavern, Monticello.
So you hear it's like public service announcements.
Penny Pepper. She was the daughter of Dr. Pepper, I believe. Yeah, but public service announcements in a very cool, laid-back manner.
Yeah. And then things happen. It's a major occurrence. 500,000 people storm a farm in upstate New York. So
People are bound to get a little more spirited.
A little more.
To get back to the warning that I've received, you may take it with however many grains of salt you wish, that the brown acid that is circulating around us is not specifically too good. It's suggested that you do stay away from that. Of course, it's your own trip, so be my guest, but please be advised that there is a warning on that one, okay?
It's funny, before he says there's a warning, it gets a pop when he says the brown acid.
Yeah.
But there's other things going on. It's not just brown acid you have to worry about. There's other people doing other things.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you please, would those of you who have taken up residence on the towers please come down? There are people sitting behind you who have the same right as you, who unfortunately cannot see. It would be greatly appreciated if you'd please come down.
So while Chipmunk had this very calm, soothing voice, there was another guy doing stage announcements named John Morris. He was a little more street, a little more gruff. But here's him talking about the state of the concert at this point in time.
It's a free concert from now on. That doesn't mean that anything goes. What that means is we're going to put the music up here for free. What it means is that the people who are backing this thing, who put up the money for it, are going to take a bit of a bath. A big bath. That's no hype, that's truth. They're going to get hurt. But the one major thing you have to remember tonight, when you go back up into the woods to go to sleep, or if you stay here, is that the man next to you is your brother. And you damn well better treat each other that way, because if they don't, then we blow the whole thing. But we've got it right there.
Very uplifting message.
Yes, I think overall very positive.
Well,
do you think the people listened?
I think a lot of them did. I think for the most part, it did. It wasn't a disaster the way it really could have been. 500,000 kids, most of them on drugs, many of them on psychedelics, on a farm and in the woods and on a lake in upstate New York. They closed
with the biggest rock and roll stars in the world.
Yeah, they closed the New York Thruway. I mean, because there was so many people, but there are still problems happening at the concert.
Things did escalate.
Those of you that are staying on the towers now, would you please get down? It's really annoying to have to constantly make this announcement. It's like a reprimand to children. It just doesn't seem to be necessary.
So that's the way he handles it. And then here's the way the other guy handles it.
Man, you are not bigger or big enough to insult an artist who's sitting on the stage, who's here to play for you. So get down off that tower. Come on, creep. Come on down.
See, that guy's great.
Come on, creep.
But they get the guy down, or at least they shame him a little bit. The acid is still an issue, and we'll close out with a few different takes on acid. The first one here is from Country Joe and the Fish, a very memorable artist from Woodstock. He did the Fixin' the Die Rag, and everyone sang along. Very popular scene in the movie. It's one way of trying to deal with it. Make sure you say, it's not poison.
It's Country Joe. Country Joe.
I am informed that somebody somewhere is giving out some flat blue acid. It is poison. That's deadly serious, man. I just informed we got 4 or 5 people who are a little sick from it. 15. Be cool. And whoever you are, man, I'd love to find you.
So stay away from the acid. It's poison. We'll close out with this clip. Hugh Romney, who would later become Wavy Gravy, with his state of the things in terms of acid at Woodstock.
My name is Hugh Romney. I'm with a hog farm, and I'm working on a scene. Some people call it bum trips. I don't think there's such a thing as a bum trip. Now, people have been saying that some of the acid is poisoned. It's not poisoned. It's just bad acid. It's manufactured poorly. So anybody that thinks they've taken some poison, forget it. And if you feel like experimenting, only take half a tab, okay? Thank you.
And there it is, some of the sounds of
If it might be poison, only take half of it first.
Exactly. And apparently this box set has as many of the stage announcements as exist on tape are on the box set. The box set is pretty much everything except, I think, 3 songs. It's the first time they've been able to get everyone on the same page, clear all the rights to all the different artists. It's a pretty big deal, actually.
So anyway, it's I want to get my grubby hands on this, and I wanted to bring it up and we wanted to play some of those because in my search for details on this tremendous Woodstock documentary box set, I have had contact with the folks at Rhino Records and have made a deal on behalf of the members of the Cult of Cornette. You don't just need to buy this Woodstock CD set, although we do highly recommend it. But if you go to the website, Rhino, RHINO.com for Rhino Records, everything on their website besides this limited edition 38 CD box set, if you enter the code JCE as the promo code, you get 10% off of everything they got. You cannot get a discount on this Woodstock box set, but the 38 CD limited edition of 1,969 box sets of the most complete Woodstock collection ever is only $799.99, which is almost a better deal than the Mid-Atlantic Classics on JimCornette.com. However, whichever thing you want, whether it's the Woodstock box set or whether it's anything on Rhino.com, you can get anything 10% off anything on Rhino.com by offering the promo code JCE, except obviously for the limited edition set, which nobody, including me, apparently is getting any deals on. But we got some deals for the cult members.
Well, remember, there are other Woodstock box sets that are out now and available at Rhino.com. There's a 10 CD 50th anniversary set and also a 3 CD or 5 LP anniversary collection.
Well, that's and also with the 10 CDs, it's every Woodstock act that played the festival, 32 of them, and 64-page booklet, photos, memorabilia, et cetera, and the 5 LP or 3 CD 50th anniversary set. You can get 10% off if you enter JCE as your promo code at Rhino.com. Just not the big one, because they ain't cutting no deals. But has anybody that loves weird shit, wild shit, wacky shit, quirky shit, nostalgia shit, or niche shit ever not gone to Rhino.com or patronized Rhino Records? I can't see that happening. Anyway, so speaking of cool stuff, folks, if you want to see me over the summer, July the 6th, Saturday night, next Saturday night, I'll be in Chicago for Major League Wrestling, the MLW television taping, including the live special Kings of Coliseum. I hope everybody tuned in last week for that 6-man we mentioned with Filthy Tom Lawler and the Von Erich boys, Ross and Marshall, against the Contra unit, which was fucking insane on television. Holy shit. And that Jacob Fatu is the new Big Bubba Rogers. You can hit him with a Volkswagen, and it won't put him down. But imagine this, Brian, this wild, incredible tornado 6-man tag match that tore the house down and got the biggest reaction of the night. There was still no damage to the arena or any of the fans put at risk. I don't know how they were able to do that as professionals and not, put people at risk and damage the building and cause the promotion problems. It's unheard of for professionals to do that.
Your damage is my art.
Anyway, July 12th through the 14th, I'm going to be at the Fanboy Expo in Knoxville, Tennessee. The Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton, Stan Lane, and Dennis Condrey will all three be there on Saturday the 13th only. And then August 15th through the 18th in Charlotte, North Carolina at The Gathering, the big Charlotte summer meeting place for all classic wrestling fans. You can check JimCornette.com and the Midnight will be there also. JimCornette.com for the information on all of these various appearances. I wish I could do this loop. If I could do this loop in 7 days, then I would go on the road for a week. Listen to this: Buffalo, New York, Binghamton, New York, Portland, Maine, Providence, Rhode Island, Hartford, Connecticut, and Boston, Massachusetts. If I could do that the way this guy did, I would go back on the road for a week at a time. You know who I'm talking about?
I don't know who you're talking about.
That was a week in the life of Gorgeous George in 1950. Matt Farmer, who actually I just has just hired on at MLW as a producer. And I just got a chance to talk to him a little bit last month in Milwaukee. He has been putting out some great tweets. He's digs up all this historical information, newspaper documents, stuff from the Pfeffer collection in Notre Dame. He's looked at everything, right? And apparently that was from April 28th through May 4th in 1950. That was Gorgeous George's schedule. And obviously for the younger folks, it was 1948 with television, and really 49, that Gorgeous George broke out. Gorgeous George and Milton Berle were responsible for selling more television sets than any other two human beings in the United States. And because George was on the TV from Hollywood, from Los Angeles, and and network TV wrestling, was huge in the early days. So what was his hottest period, you think, from 49 to like 52, 50? He was hot all the way through the 50s, but it was a Gorgeous George mania, like Hulkamania, for that first, 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, the early boom of TV.
Well, there you have it. The early boom of TV was the early boom of George. Anyway, so we've talked about in the early 50s, Vern Gagne, Lou Thez as the NWA champion. Hans Schmidt one year was in there as the top heel on the Chicago Dumont network. Gorgeous George was another guy that was not only he was the 5 highest paid pro athletes in any sport in the United States for the first early part of the 1950s. Was the world heavyweight boxing champion and 4 pro wrestlers, because the money wasn't there in basketball and football and as a profession yet. And wrestling was hot because it was on network TV. Gorgeous George was able to command, depending on the promoter and depending on the market, upwards of 15 or 20% of the gate to appear. He was so hot because his name would sell out in most places. So, and bear in mind, this is in 1950, April 28th, 1950 in Buffalo, New York, Gorgeous George main evented, and his payoff was $1,298. The 29th in Binghamton, it was $435. May 1st in Portland, Maine, it was $260. The 2nd in Providence, Rhode Island, $724. The 3rd in Hartford, Connecticut, $705. And the 4th in Boston, Massachusetts, which I'm sure would have been at the Garden, $1,007. So his weekly total for that week was $4,426 in 1950. When we run it through our little inflation calculator today, would you take a wild guess at how much $4,426 in 1950 equals today?
20 grand.
$41,032.
Wow.
And that was a week.
In smaller cities.
Well, in some case, yeah, Binghamton, New York, Portland, Maine. But and Matt had also, and I wish I'd have kept record of this, but he had a tour through the Northwest, Washington State, Oregon, etc., on another week that Matt had highlighted, where he made, I think it was like $2,800 or $3,000 or whatever, and people were going, oh my God, that it would equal 28, 30 grand a day, and people were like, oh my God. And so Matt said, no, look at this one. That wasn't even one of the big weeks. Of course, and Gorgeous George also, as we know, at the end of his life, he died Christmas Day, 1963. He had his last match or last couple of matches were mercy bookings because he was an alcoholic and he had lost all his money, and they booked him in the Olympic to get his head shaved, and then later on somewhere else for his wife, Sherry, to get her head shaved because they needed the money 13 years after this or whatever. So that's also a cautionary tale. But just if you took half of this, 20 grand a week, the equivalent, he was making the equivalent of $1 million a year without even, it wasn't even a stretch. Pro wrestling pay has gone down, if you notice, in relation to all other sports. It's funny how that happens. When it all turns into a work and it's more about the promotion and the show than the individual talent and the amount of sway they have at the box office. Then the promoter gets all the money.
And when there's only one place to work.
Well, exactly. But there's a few different places to work now, and they still ain't paying like that. Except in some cases where they may be overpaying, but we'll talk about that here in a little while. But you have put out some clips, some more on the buses of In the News is on the bus.
Omnibus.
On YouTube.
Omnibus.
Well, whatever.
Yes, we have another collection, the Omnibus collection. I believe we have an OVW deep dive one that's over 5 hours. We have the Montreal Omnibus, which is you and Dave Meltzer and you and me talking all about the Montreal reveal that you were behind, the most dastardly finish of all time. Just an awful thing that you did.
Oh, God, don't give other people a reason to hate me now.
And now the brand new In the News Omnibus. In the News is a very popular segment on the 605 Super Podcast where Jim and myself go through classic wrestling newspaper articles from as far back as the turn of the century, dealing with people like Gorgeous George and others, and just shedding light on some funny, some crazy, some scandalous stories from time to time. And when I say from time to time, apparently the first 10 editions are over 5 hours. And that Omnibus collection is available right now for subscribers at our YouTube channel. Of course, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel, tinyurl.com/official Corny YouTube, or just go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette.
And there is an In the News segment upcoming on one of your fine programs also, whenever we do it.
That's right. We just negotiated for the past week. It was touch and go for a little while, but episode 100 in production. In the News with Jim Cornette returns. It will be a new era. The first era outside of the Omnibus collection, available right now on YouTube. But yes, episode 100, Jim Cornette in the News. We have a couple other things we'll be announcing in the next couple of weeks. But Jim, real quick, if I could just announce a couple other things. The Super Studcast number 18, part 2 with Ron Garvin. This is it. One member of the Knoxville Five and the Tennessee Stud, the owner of Southeastern Wrestling, on the line together for the first time talking about the Knoxville Wrestling War. This is Ron for the first time asking questions. He's always wondered about the way things went down, and he's talking to not just a member of the Knoxville Five, but clearly the biggest star in Knoxville of the Knoxville Five. Would you say that's fair?
Yes. Well, here's the thing. Ron Wright was involved, and Ron overall was a bigger name than anybody historically to the Knoxville territory. But Ron Garvin at the time was of the bunch involved, the top main event guy that left.
Hear this for the first time ever. The Tennessee Stud and Ron Garvin talk all about the Knoxville Wrestling War. Available for patrons of the Studcast at patreon.com/Studcast. Also want to make mention, the latest edition of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, Then and Now, classic audio with Kevin Sullivan, Paul E. Dangerously, Dave Meltzer, Professor Toru Tanaka, plus the Power Twins in the studio fighting with the callers, and so much more. That's available at pwspod.com, or available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership. We mentioned it earlier, so I won't mention it again.
The Mothership. All right. Once again, I start to wonder about, you know how I've always said here the last several years, there's more smart people than there is stupid people. The stupid people just call attention to themselves more. Yeah. But I'm starting to wonder because people, once again, they don't get it. So this past weekend, I think it was maybe Friday morning or whatever, I'm scrolling around on my Twitter before I begin my day, and just apropos of nothing, out of nowhere, some guy has said, well, fuck Jim Cornette. He's whatever the fuck he is, right? And his name, whatever his name, John Jones, but it had like John Jones PW, which I've come to mean now amongst the kids mean I'm a pro wrestler. See, PW, pro wrestler. And there's a picture of him on his thing. He's got no shirt on, he's hitting a bicep shot, and he's like translucent, fishy white, and like 130 pounds. And, you know, a lot of people think, oh, he finds these people. I just scroll down, and whatever fucking strikes my eye, it's somewhat random, because I don't have time to goddamn go through all of this and look up people and everything. But I did find out not long ago that if you move your mouse thing, if the arrow goes over the guy's name, it'll pop up his profile without you having to click on it, which takes way too much time. And then I come back in a different place and I've lost my place and I'm confused. So I've moved the arrow over the thing, and sure enough, it pops up a little bigger so I can see it. It says UK-based pro wrestler or pro wrestler in England or whatever the fuck. I'm like, Jesus. So I write back at him. You're saying, fuck Jim Cornette. Look at the state of you and your dish rag body. You need if you ever got a sunburn, you'd look like a thermometer, right? And then I go on about my day. You say you're a pro wrestler. Well, I come back 3 or 4 hours later from doing something and sit down and click on it, just see what's going on. And now there's just everybody's all over Twitter. How dare you mock the disabled? I mean, what the fuck have I done now? And I'm looking through this shit. And other people are going, well, he brought it on himself. He just played the disabled card after. What the fuck? The guy's comeback to me was, how dare you say that about my body? I'm disabled. I have cerebral palsy. What the fuck? He's a pro wrestler with cerebral palsy. And before the fucking, I've just raised thousands of dollars for handicapped children. So just blow me and fuck off with your, now he's on the cerebral palsy. I'm on this cerebral palsy guy. Can you be a professional wrestler if you are 5 foot whatever and 130 pounds and have cerebral palsy? Should you be telling people you're a professional wrestler and then and showing a picture of you apparently in a wrestling ring and then get mad if people go, what the fuck is with you? Especially when you're knocking them first. And then somebody said, well, it's right there in his name. So apparently there is a little symbol. And once again, I can't see this shit, and I'm not going to study this fucking guy. But there's a little symbol of a little wheelchair symbol inside a blue thing. I thought it was a goddamn diamond ring. I didn't know what the fuck it was. That's on his fucking, it's an icon, do they call him.
A diamond ring.
That's what it looked like to me. It's got a little arrow coming off of it. I don't fucking know. I'm not taking a goddamn little jeweler's magnifying glass. But anyway, so now suddenly, oh, he's a horrible human being. He's a terrible human being because he's mocking the disabled. I didn't know that a guy that claimed to be a professional wrestler and with pictures of himself apparently trying to do this or being in a ring or whatever was not only I didn't know that he was disabled, but also I didn't know that when did professional wrestlers' feelings get so, well, I'm getting ahead of myself because a lot of these people are calling themselves professional wrestlers. So anyway, then not hours later, here comes this other guy, the guy that David Starr, who I've mentioned before, and I will mention that again. He chimes in, well, since everybody's policing what wrestling should be, I'll show you what a horrible human being Jim Cornette is. David Starr is a guy I actually put over a couple months ago because he's the one that did that interview about he was going to challenge Jay Lethal for the Ring of Honor title overseas somewhere, I think in Israel. And he's Jewish, so it was a big deal that they built up. And he's going to get the first title shot of, on Israeli ground or whatever. And he did a promo. And Sinclair Broadcasting got hot and made him take it down because he talked about Sinclair Broadcasting being right-wing fucking nuts, right? Which, I mean, the facts are out there. They are right-wing, and if you're right-wing, you're nuts. So I not only agreed with the guy, but I thought it was a hell of a promo when I said that, right? Learn not to compliment anybody. Because as soon as I said that and put the guy over for doing a great promo and that Sinclair shouldn't have taken it down and all this stuff, then one of our UK cult members, the lovely and talented Anita, writes me on Twitter and says, well, this fucking guy, he has these intergender matches and he wrestles girls every weekend all over the UK and loses to most of them. And I'm like, oh, fuck, that disappointed me because I wanted to be on this guy's side, right? So I had to tweet back a correction. I just found out that the guy that they took the promo down has play wrestling matches with girls on a weekly basis and apparently loses matches to girls all over the United Kingdom. So therefore, Ring of Honor Wrestling is disrespecting its championship by allowing him to wrestle for it. Because what else would you expect? You finally get an opportunity to wrestle for a major promotion and for the championship, and you have been getting beat by women all over the fucking world. What do you expect? See Stone Cold Steve Austin, Mark Merrow, right? But they were more mad about his political comments. So anyway, then they took the belt off Jay Lethal and he didn't have a title match anyway. However, I thought that this guy had fired back just because he's a friend of the guy with cerebral palsy. And once again, I wasn't mocking cerebral palsy. I would have insulted him in some other way had I known he was physically disabled. But I also didn't think he'd be a professional wrestler. But anyway. So I thought this guy's just a friend, but then it was brought to my attention that I'd said those things about him, so I guess he's been stewing on it and festering on it for a couple months. But anyway, so David Starr tweets a link to a recording from 1994, which once again, I believe you were present at, Brian, concerning an incident at a Smoky Mountain Wrestling event that year where I used an offensive racial term to describe a guy that I was in the middle of a physical altercation with. It wasn't a fan, by the way. That's what some people, I wasn't yelling at the fans. It was a member of the football team that was supposed to be the security at the school that we were at who physically injected himself in a Heavenly Bodies match and magnified the confusion because for the first time in wrestling history, security had to throw a security guard out, which took a while. But anyway, this might come as a surprise, but I lost my temper in this incident and offensive language was used. But in the 25 years since then, I've learned, as we all have, that you can't use that language even on a guy you're in a fight with as a personal insult without affecting and offending a group of innocent people that you're not in a fight with and didn't have anything to do with it, which is why we don't use language like that anymore. So I apologize if my remarks in 1994 offended anyone in 2019, but we've all evolved since then. However, once again, anger management issues don't make me the Grand Dragon of the Kentucky KKK. Because of my former predilection for verbally eviscerating people that I'm involved with physically in various ways, it doesn't mean that any more than criticizing a silly outlaw mud show battle royal makes me homophobic. What I'm phobic about is the play wrestlers putting on the silly, phony performances and or every goof in the world trying to call themselves pro wrestlers. And then when I mention this, the people trying to make me out to be such a shitty person are the same people generally that do the shit that I've been mentioning. And the people that like them also, because knocking the play wrestlers these days is like knocking Leif Garrett to a 14-year-old girl in 1977. It just goddamn institutes chaos immediately. But these people don't say, no, Cornette's wrong about what he said. I'm a great wrestler and here's why. They say, oh, don't listen to him because he's a horrible human being, which may or may not be true. That's yet to be litigated. But here's the deal. People that personally lie to me or fuck me around are going to hear about it. And people who make a joke and a mockery out of wrestling are going to hear about it too. And they can hide behind, well, Cornette hates all modern wrestling all they want because that's bullshit. I've watched whatever number of different promotions this year, some live, some on tape, and I put plenty of current talent over. And I've also seen a lot of guys that weren't that great, to be generous, but they were trying to be. They were serious. They weren't a stupid, phony comedy bullshit, hands in pockets, play kicking, invisible man. They were trying to be as good as they could be and be serious, and they deserve a chance to learn and to improve. And that's why I don't fucking just goddamn tell these people to find another line of work, because they're at least trying. But to fucking, whether it be the hands in pockets assholes and the deathmatch goofs and the untrained dive bar wannabes, if you want to call yourself a pro wrestler and you get your feelings hurt on Twitter, do the smart thing for all of us and get another line of work. And instead of trying to make me out to be a fucking horrible person, and by the way, on this racism stuff, especially after Barack Obama got elected in 2008, and the real legitimate racism came up and you saw got a good sniff of it and saw what it looked like, nobody wants to act like that at all anymore. Nobody wants to be like those people. So we've all changed. But if you can't accept what I'm saying about your outlaw mud show play wrestling and the fact that a lot of people agree with me, then it's not my fault. Don't tell everybody I'm working. I'm not working. I'm not trying to be relevant because I'm more well-known in wrestling than any of you will ever be. I've had a 40-year career. I've worked everywhere. And as Brian will tell you, more people listen to me now than ever.
Yeah.
I have extensive talent and experience in every area of wrestling. And the main reason why they don't like me and they got to tear me down and they got to tell people I'm working just to get notoriety is because I'm real. I'm real, motherfuckers. The wrestling business has turned into such a scripted, formulated, manufactured, contrived, choreographed, controlled, homogenized, pasteurized, sanitized performance. And everybody goddamn just thinks it's a high school drama class or a fucking community theater project. Everybody knows whether on or off camera, I'm the only real thing in the wrestling business these days. And if I don't like something, I don't have to pretend to. Because I'm not beholden to anybody except myself. And I say what I think. And so all the play wrestlers and all the others, sorry about your fucking feelings. But I'm offended by you. Just, now I know what it feels like when, well, at least they did this in the 80s and 90s. I don't know if they do it today, but remember when there'd be a big hit movie, a big Hollywood blockbuster, and then they'd make a porn parody of it? Now I know what it felt like when Steven Spielberg made movies and then watched the porn company make a fucking bad parody of it, except actually no, because there were still some incredible individual performances in those porn movies. But now I am offended by not only their performances in wrestling, in my profession, that I've been making big money in since before they were even a gleam in their father's eye. I'm offended that they're teaching this new generation of play wrestling fan that they're fucking cultivating that it's okay. And that wrestling is supposed to be silly and fun and stupid, and they're supposed to be invisible men, and we're all supposed to grab this guy's dick and get tossed around and vomit on each other and all the other things they do. And they teach the fucking fans that it's okay not to take the business in any way seriously, and it's all a joke because they don't have the talent to hang with the big boys. And not only do they foster this feeling amongst themselves in their little mud show locker rooms, but they make the fans think that too. And that's a criminal offense against my profession, and I'm not going to put up with it. I'm going to talk about it and tell them what I think of it. And they can fucking figure out some way that I was behind the Kennedy assassination or potentially taught Genghis Khan everything he knew, and disregard everything that I say that the people who actually listen understand is the truth and is who I am and what I'm talking about. Or you can get these fucking knuckleheads that just don't get it because they can't hear the words that are coming out of people's mouth, and they're just shocked that anybody could think that Kenny Omega's not the greatest wrestler in the world. And if, Tony Khan's a billionaire businessman, I'm sure he's been criticized before with a lot more money riding on it than his wrestling venture. And I wasn't criticizing Tony Khan when I criticized All Elite Wrestling. I was criticizing the people that ill-served him by putting on a fiasco of a fucking vaudeville sideshow on his first event. Some of those people also managed to put together the greatest wrestling match that I've seen in ages between Dustin Rhodes and Cody. Or maybe it wasn't anything to do with those people that put on that battle royal. But I don't wish All Elite Wrestling to fucking crash and burn just because, in my opinion, the businessman behind it has invested his money in some cases in an ill-served fashion with the talent that he's listening to that are obviously not out for his best interest, but are out to play and jack off in front of people. However, I don't want them to die. That's the same reason I was involved with TNA and suffered Shitstain's presence, because I wanted there to be an alternate to the WWF and Vince McMahon not to be the only person that anybody in wrestling had to work for to make money. Same reason that I got involved with Ring of Honor and got them on broadcast television and facilitated that sale for Kerry to try to help money get behind a company that had a chance to possibly give folks another place to go, which it has. But when I see a guy who, like Tony Khan, who has all the resources, is willing to put the money in, has the resources, talk to the TV networks, and whoever the fuck is responsible is giving him goddamn first-timers on announcing, comedy wrestlers in his goddamn, at his show in front of 10,000 people, stupid bullshit for no reason to get in the way of the actual talent that they do have on their card, it pisses me off. So I might be homophobic because I thought Sonny Kiss was dressed funny. And I said the same thing about a dozen other people in the Battle Royal. Some of them may be gay. We don't know. They might not have told anybody. Would I be homophobic if I mentioned that? Fuck. You're playing around, boys. You've got a fucking chance here. You got a chance. You're funded. You've got a TV show. You got a backer that's willing to go with you. You've got advantages. Don't fuck around and act like you're running a rec center. And you're all trying to make people giggle before you go to the goddamn merch stand. This is the big leagues now. I know none of you have ever seen it because it's been since before some of you were born that professional wrestling actually was presented in large part in fucking NBA-sized arenas and major promotions around the country. So I know you might not recognize it, but this could be the big leagues if you fucking sharpen up and play your cards right instead of fucking jacking off. So, by the way, I'm going to give him another chance. Brian, when is that program this weekend? Is it Saturday night?
AEW's Fighter Fest, Saturday night, June 29th.
It's not on television, right?
No, you have to stream it through a computer, your least favorite thing.
You're going to send me the information on how to do this, correct?
Yeah. Oh, so you are committing to doing it, yes?
Well, that's what I'm going to give them another chance. I'm going to watch their show on Saturday night. I'm going to even though it's not on television, I'm going to fucking watch it. And next week, I'll tell you what I think about it. And I will tell you if there's good stuff, I will put it over. Because nobody listens to me when I say that anyway. And if there's more stupid fucking shit, I will mention that too. Because these assholes are ruining a golden opportunity for wrestlers in the business now and wrestlers yet unborn, that if this company gets off the ground and is more than just a fucking vaudeville sideshow for a bunch of fucking hipster young Bucks fans that think it's funny when they fucking super kick children or whatever it is the fuck that they all do. If this company makes it, it'll be a place for people in wrestling to work and to fucking prosper ongoing. So maybe they'll fucking calm down from their first show and get the nervousness out of them and realize, okay, now we actually got to run a real business, Pinocchio. And they'll present a good, serious show telling me who these people are and why they're mad at each other and what their goals and aspirations are, and have serious matches and no fucking schlub with his hands in his pockets play kicking at a guy's shins. Wait, let me ask you this. Is there anything racist or phobic or sexist or anything about hoping that a fucking stupid motherfucker that sticks his hands in his pockets and goes in and shits all over the wrestling business should be boiled in oil and have his fat sold for soap, or be disemboweled and use the fucking intestines as a garland for my Christmas tree?
No.
Is there any group of people that would be offended by that? You motherfucker, you're the new motherfucker I'm going to make a star. 'Cause you know what? Ultimately, that's why all these people want to hop on me. They either want to hop on me because I'm cutting them down and I'm telling the truth and they can't deter or defend against that, or they basically, they just want to hop on me because I have the freedom to tell people that you're an embarrassment to my profession and you should fucking go. Leave, be gone. And they tried, but they try to get over, they try to make stars and get themselves relevant by fucking with me on Twitter. But I'm not going to mention the hand. I'm just going to call him Pockets from now on. I don't want to mention his name because that might get him some notoriety. But now, if you notice, Brian, these fucking outlaw darlings, they got a shelf life now, what, about 18 months? Some guy does something really stupid on an outlaw show somewhere. That's why they're all doing this. They know they haven't got any talent, but if they do something stupid on an outlaw show, the video will go out everywhere. And then every fucking stupid outlaw mud show mark promoter around the world will want to book these fucking cretins for about a year or 18 months, maybe. Let's one of them breaks their fucking leg, which often happens. And so they think they'll get work out of it for a little while because they know they're never going to get any work any other way because they're the shits. So they constantly try to top themselves. So I don't want to broadcast this fucking Nimrod's name, but I'm just going to, from now on, I'm going to call him Pockets. And I think Pockets is going to be the new one that anytime I get the chance to tell him what I think of him, I believe I will, because I think he's probably he's the most offensive one of the bunch since Dick Boy. There's no redeeming value to that whatsoever.
Would you like to hear the card for Saturday night?
Absolutely. What am I going to be watching on Saturday night and talking about here next week on The Experience?
Well, it depends. Are you going to be watching The Buy-In, which I assume is their pre-show at 7 p.m.?
I'll watch whatever's in front of me on their screen that they put up.
Okay, well, here's the pre-show matches and the main show matches. SCU versus Best Friends versus Private Party. The winners earn a shot at All Out for a first-round bye in the World Tag Team Championship Tournament.
What? Now, wait. Hold on.
The winners earn a shot at All Out for a first-round bye in the World Tag Team Championship Tournament.
Okay, so
it has to be
first of all, it's a triple threat match between SCU, which is Chris Daniels, Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky, but they're a three-man team. I assume Freebird rules here.
Right.
And I enjoyed their match, and I've known Daniels and Kazarian forever, and they're athletes, and they tear it up. And then you got the Best Friends, which is the fucking goof with the invisible hand grenade with the bad fucking haircut, and the guy that should dump him because he looks like that he might actually be able to do something, and their gimmick is they hug each other. And Private Party. Who? What?
I don't know Private Party.
Okay, well, it is.
But if it's their lucky day, they win a chance to earn a shot for a first-round bye in the Tag Team Championship Tournament.
Next match, please.
Michael Nakazawa versus Alex Jabali in a hardcore match.
Michael Nakazawa was the guy in the Battle Royal that poured baby oil all over himself to get out of holes and then just did it some more on himself just because he liked it. And he's going to fight the other guy in a hardcore match.
Following that match?
Do they have a grudge against each other? Have these people, have they had a long history of violence in their program that they've just gone to a hardcore match?
I'm not aware of any history, but this hardcore match is also part of the pre-show, The Buy-In.
So this is allegedly going to, this and the match you just talked about for the chance at the cat that chased the rat that ate the house, that is going to be part of the thing that's enticing you to buy the rest of the program.
Coming out of that, we get Nyla Rose.
How much is this thing costing me, by the way?
It's free. It's a free stream.
Well, then what is buy-in?
I don't know why they do. I guess maybe in other countries and other places, maybe it is a
all right,
pay-per-view event.
All right, very good.
Nyla Rose versus, I don't know if this is Riho or Riho versus Yuka Sakazaki.
Oh, they had a triple threat women's match booked on the previous show and then made it a four-way with Awesome Kong. One of my problems that I had with the three-way or four-way was that nobody got over because the beasts were marginalized. Nyla Rose and Kong were both marginalized by having to be taken out of the thing, blah, blah, blah. I said I'd like to have seen any of the girls involved in a single match instead of what we saw. So now they come back with another triple threat women's match. I have never seen the last two of those girls. And if you can't pronounce them, I'm not going to try. But hopefully this is a showcase for Nyla Rose to beat up 2 smaller girls and get over as a monster. We shall see.
We then get Christopher Daniels versus Seema.
You know, that is probably going to be fucking good because Daniels was against the guys from China on the although is he Japanese and he trains the Chinese? They didn't still explain that to me, but I'd like to see that.
We then get a 4-way match.
Oh, God.
Hangman Page versus MJF versus Jimmy Havoc versus Jungle Boy.
Oh, Christ. And once again, there 4-way matches, 3-way matches. They've run. This is the second fucking show. What are they going to be doing in a year and a half? There's no reason for these multiple man matches. They're messes. It's just an exhibition of moves. Nobody tells a story. Nobody gets over. And once again, I like how I say that all the time. Once again, because I have to go back to this point. You could have MJF against Adam Page, and they could have a hell of a match. And whichever finish you wanted to do, I know Page is in their title picture. MJF is an incredible promo. You can beat him. He can keep his heat. Whatever the fuck. It would be fine and it would progress something and get somebody over. Instead, you've put them in with that fucking, I'm sorry, Jimmy Havoc. He looks ill. He's so pale and so small. And he's the scars everywhere. He has no physique. He looks outlaw. Doing the garbage wrestling shit with the staple gun. And Jungle Boy, put Jungle Boy in the first match against other guys close to his size, but that can have a little more experience so that they can put him over and he can be a guy that bubbles up from underneath and he has a great story and he's the son of a famous actor. Don't put him in at his size with his level of fucking experience in a 4-way match against a garbage wrestler and 2 guys who should be main eventers right now. Because then you've diminished Page's and MJF's standing in the fans' eyes by having them stand next to an obvious garbage wrestler like Jimmy Havoc and a prelim guy that is a good-looking guy like Jungle Boy. But let him get him over first. Instead of it's a 4-way because they got in a fight on the pay-per-view, which they shouldn't have gotten in. Because I remember I've mentioned that if they'd left Havoc and Jungle Boy out of it and had Page clock MJF, then they'd have had something. So here we go again. They're booking for an independent wrestling show crowd that is used to all this shit that has started coming up in the last 5 or 10 years instead of a mainstream audience. Go ahead. What's next?
Cody versus Darby Allin.
Okay, I have never seen me any Darby Allin, so I've got no opinion here whatsoever, but at least it's a singles match.
He was in that documentary you had me watch, The Wrestlers, the Gabe Sapolsky episode.
Which one was he?
He was the skateboarder, the straight edge one, named after Gigi Allen and Darby Crash from the Germs.
Oh, God.
I think he broke his arm in the documentary.
Oh, all right. So he's another one of the fucking tortured youth skateboarders that have decided to become wrestlers. Well, let's see what he can do.
We then get Jon Moxley versus Joey Janela.
Here you have one of the hottest wrestlers in the business. One of you're big right now because he did make a jump. He went straight from WWE to All Elite. Your big name, one of your main event guys, your big talent acquisition from the biggest company in the world, who everybody likes and raves about, and I raved about too when I didn't like Dean Ambrose because I now realize that Dean Ambrose was sleepwalking his way out of a contract. But I liked Jon Moxley, so you put him in with a self-trained goof from the backyard who has no idea how to have a fucking match, why matches are held. He knows nothing about wrestling. He's one of these garbage guys that takes bumps off roofs and cuts their body parts off because he's fucking, I guess, mentally deficient. I don't fucking know. And don't the mentally deficient fucking crowd get on me now. He's probably not mentally deficient enough to qualify with the state, he's just a fucking moron. So you put your main event guy in with this guy that's going to stink it up regardless because, did I mention he doesn't know he might know how to do moves, but he's never been trained how to wrestle, how to work. So because he's a hot name on the independents, they think that because this guy gets over in hotel ballrooms in front of 700 people or wherever the fuck, that he's deserving of being on national television. They are ill-serving their financial investor.
And then in your main event, it's the Lucha Brothers and the Laredo Kid versus Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks.
Well, it's going to be a spectacle. I've actually seen the Laredo kid too. He was on an NWA event last year. But I mean, you know, everybody's going to say, "Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever." It was so much better than Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat. Let's see if they have a good match as opposed to having a match with a bunch of good moves. But, you know, once again, because of Omega's background and the Young Bucks, I'm only going to like it so much, but I was hoping they might surprise me with the rest of the card. I can see they're probably not going to surprise me, but we shall see.
Well, I think it's kind of a middle-of-the-road card until the next big event.
Middle of the road. The guy's got $1 billion. There's a lot
his dad does. His father.
Well, there is a lot of legitimate, potential, unsigned talent in professional wrestling to the point where you don't have to use the backyard play wrestlers and fly a fucking scar-covered goof from England to fucking use a staple gun on somebody and stink your show out on your second show. I could find guys in a 3-state area here working independent shows in Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio that look better physically, have a better mind for the business, and have a better attitude for wanting to succeed as legitimate wrestlers instead of a bunch of fucking play wrestlers to put in that spotlight. And they are shooting themselves in the foot by highlighting this foolishness instead of trying to fucking get a foundation together to build a serious wrestling promotion. Half the guys are there because they deserve it, and half the guys are there because they're friends of fucking people that are there because they possibly deserve it. You know, do wonderful things for your friends when you get a job with a high-paid wrestling company. Take them out to dinner. Don't put them all on the fucking show. I had more standards on who I would put on my OVW television show in Louisville that was seen in 15,000 households on one station than they do broadcasting shit to the world. Anyway.
Saturday night, Daytona Beach, be there.
Be there. Or don't. Comedy in wrestling. I just want to take a few more minutes, not take up everybody's day with a big lecture. But just because I don't give my blessing to this foolishness doesn't mean that then everybody tweets, "Oh, you just want to see headlocks for an hour and boring wrestling." And when the fuck was old-fashioned, old-school professional wrestling ever boring? Maybe, I mean, back in the 20s, maybe, and especially when they still shot. But you look at the videos from the 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, unless it was a territory in its dying days or really bad shape, the people are going nuts. The matches are they're wild, they're crazy. Not every fucking match, obviously. You always have stinky matches. We have plenty today. But guys weren't trying to be fucking buffoons. They just weren't very good at it because there was 1,000 guys making full-time livings as wrestlers. So sometimes you get what you get. But it doesn't mean just because the product of wrestling is supposed to be presented seriously that everybody in it has to be serious and can't be funny. I was the funniest guy in fucking wrestling at one time. Is this an exaggeration?
No, your promos would crack people up even though you were a heel getting massive heat.
Because it worked in more than one way. I've said this before. I'll try to say it again for the new folks. If you pop off a really good, funny, fat joke, everybody laughs. Except if it's you or if it's your wife that is the subject of the fat joke, then it ain't funny. For the people who believed wrestling, or at least believed in me, believed in the Rock and Roll Express, believed in our opponents, believed in the personalities, I don't care how funny my jokes were and my lines were and how bad I eviscerated people verbally. It made those people mad because they liked the people that I was talking shit about. More than liked them. They in some cases worshipped them or idolized them. Like these fucking knuckleheads, they worship the sacks of shit like Omega and Ryan and all the play wrestlers. So it wasn't funny when I said those things. But for the people who were kind of with wrestling but still interested anyway, it was fucking hilarious. And for the people who might stumble across it and didn't give a fuck about wrestling either way, but they still kind of, that guy's funny. But it wasn't all just making fun or telling jokes. It's context, which is what people don't understand. People will say, wow, Cornette, you several times got a cake in the face. You got your face smashed in a cake, and now you're mad about comedy wrestling. Okay, just as a given example, my first cake angle. Here's the way it was worked out. Here's the way I was taught how to do this. Here's the way I was explained by people that had been in the business much longer than me how this works. The heel has been constantly knocking the baby faces. He's been constantly insulting the fans. He's been constantly making a nuisance of himself, and finally he comes out on TV and takes up the people's television program that they want to see wrestling with a stupid party, with a cake and party hats and blah, 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 whether it's a celebration of a year as a U.S. Tag Champions or a birthday party for my mother's dog, Fifi, or any other stupid, or the Watts angle where it was a celebration that we'd won the Mid-South Tag Team title, whatever it was. We're having a party. And people are so fed up with me that finally the baby faces that have had enough being talked about, since baby faces say and do things that the fans wish they could do if they had the chance, but they don't have the platform or the opportunity, that's the way you get baby faces over. The baby faces run down and they smash my face in that cake and they spoil the party and they humiliate me and they embarrass me and they make me look like an idiot. And I am so mad. I'm turning red and I'm having a fucking stroke about it. And goddamn, we're going to do something about this. Because if I laughed, then the jig is up. There can be no cooperation. There can be no wink, wink. There can be no, I helped in this. I fought this happening to the fucking bitter end. But it happened. And now I'm going to get even. And then the heel escalates things where, if you'll recall, Watts was so good, he gave it a double pump. Not only did I get my face in the cake, but then when I come out and yell at him for playing the tape again and give him a bunch of shit and insult him and his family, then he slaps a piss out of me, knocks me goofy.
Get out of here, sissy.
Get out of here, sissy.
Get out of here, sissy.
And everybody's laughing at me as I've got cake all over my head and I'm crawling on my hands and knees from having a shit knocked out of me by Bill Watts, and I'm a fucking buffoon. Until the Midnight Express escalates things, until we trap Bill Watts. And we fucking jump him and we beat him and we bust his head open with a blackjack and we kick the shit out of him on television and we leave him laying for the first time that anybody's touched him in 4 fucking years, right? And then he comes back to get even, and he returns to the ring. That's the way you set it up. Everybody was laughing, and Dennis Condrey said it best. The reason why the Midnight Express got so much heat is because we made them laugh, and then we made them mad because we made them quit laughing. When it turns deadly serious, when they smashed my face in the cake in Chattanooga on TV in the summer of '83, I'd been knocking the Fantastics, saying bad things about everybody. The Fantastics break up the birthday party for the dog, smash my face in the cake. And everybody's laughing at me. And then in the next segment, out comes me and my men, and we jump the Fantastics, and we pile drive Bobby Fulton on the floor and try to break his neck, and they literally said this, tried to end his career, put him out of wrestling with a broken neck. And we ripped up their ring jackets and threw them on them and left them laying in a fucking heap. And so that night at the house show, when we're waiting in the ring for Here Comes the Fantastics, Bobby Fulton and Terry Taylor, the original Fantastics. And they've got boards, and they come in and they break boards over the heels' heads, and it's a chaos. It's a fucking brawl because it's gone past wrestling now. You tried to injure my friend. You tried to put him out, blah, blah, blah. What's funny, and everybody gets of jolly over, suddenly turns deadly serious. That's the way that you use comedy in wrestling if you want to start the thing by embarrassing the heel. Maybe you want to blow it off by embarrassing the heel. Watts did both because he started it with embarrassing me, and then the end of the last Stampede, they either diapered me or put me in a pink dress in the middle of the ring in front of all those people in all those arenas. And that's why Dundee had carefully involved the Rock and Roll Express, because when they smashed my face to cake, the Rock and Roll and the Midnight had no feud at that point. We had literally only had one match, a TV match, 6 minutes, ended in DQ when the Russians ran in, because that was the Rock and Roll's program to get over against the Russians. Watts thought that after he saw that I was getting so much heat, the Midnight was getting over, and he should come out of retirement. It meant big money. But he thought after that series, when he beat the boys and he beat me up, it'd take all the heat off of us. He wouldn't get his program with the Rock and Roll that he had wanted when he brought us from Memphis. And Dundee said, wait, let's do it this way. And he had the Rock and Roll be the ones to smash my face in the cake, so there was still some underlying tension there. And he, as soon as the last Stampede was over, son of a gun, Watts saw we still had heat. We had more heat. They put me in the dress, he got more heat. Because they didn't beat me up and leave me laying bloody, they humiliated me. And much like MJF, you can humiliate me and I can come back and talk my way out of it. So then we started the program with the Rock and Roll. And what did we do? We immediately got heavy heat on them and fucked them around. And then they had to fight back from underneath. Sometimes you want to keep it for the blow off. What was the Bobby Heenan's ultimate blow off in the AWA? The Weasel Suit. The Weasel Suit. Thank you very much. There you go. Because Bobby Heenan, who was also fucking hilarious. Bobby Heenan was incredibly funny. He had the one-liners. He knocked the baby faces. He made the witty remarks and the ad-libs. and it was the same thing. But Bobby Heenan still had enough heat that through the 70s, my God, he was attacked, and much like worse than I was. Attacked. People tried to knife him, stab him, whatever the fuck. Because it depended on the context. And you've got Bobby Heenan running around ringside interfering for his men. Fucking Dick the Bruiser around, or fucking the Crusher around, or fucking Vern Guy, whoever. And so finally, and they would beat him up, and because the people knew that he was a good wrestler, and he would bleed constantly and keep his heat. He would get beaten up constantly and keep his heat. That's where he and I's gimmick were different. The way that they could embarrass me all the time, and I could talk my way out of it because I was this rich, sissy mama's boy. But for Bobby, they beat him up constant, that they never beat me up, because that would be pretty much the end of it. They beat Bobby up constantly, but to really get people to pay, they wanted to see him embarrassed because it was unusual. They saw him beaten up regularly, but not embarrassed. So they would book him in matches where if he lost, he had to put on a weasel suit. So he could be stood there in the ring while the people derided him and mocked him and hooted at him. And fucking called him a weasel, and he was embarrassed and he was humiliated. That's why they bought their ticket. And then he'd go back on TV and he'd start talking and he'd fuck somebody else around and he'd get his heat back. There was plenty of comedy, but in overall context, it was done to draw money, to sell tickets, and not to mock wrestling, but to mock the heel. Jimmy Hart was hilarious, and hilarious things happened to him. And it was always great to have unintentionally funny things that the guys would just ad-lib and come up with it, but it always had to be where the babyface was taking the piss out of the heel, and the heel had to show that he was bullshit about it, that he was pissed off. That's what made it work. You couldn't make the heel make an idiot out of the babyface. It'd kill him dead. It doesn't work that way. And especially there can be no obvious cooperation in some kind of comedy skit between the two guys that are supposed to be fighting. The comedy has to come from the pompous windbag getting the shit taken out of him. And Jerry Lawler had more heat than any heel in the world when he was, in a heel in Tennessee, but he was still fucking hilarious with those one-liners. And also he would do funny spots when he was a babyface. He knew how to get the most out of any heel to where the people would be fucking laughing. And then as soon as he started selling, they'd be into it and they'd be serious because the heel never let on that he was participating in it, in his own fucking derision. There's a context to all this that's so much deeper and so much more complicated and it used to be understood universally in the wrestling business because the people that were involved in it, the people that were performing it and manipulating it, had years of experience in front of those big buildings and those big crowds for a variety of promotions all over the place and different people's tastes, but they knew the basic psychology of getting a babyface over or getting a heel over and keeping it that way. And there was comedy and there was thrills and there was triumph, there was tragedy and there was fear and there was hatred and anger and all that stuff. One of the biggest drawing angles in the history of the Carolinas, Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat. Ricky Flair in the suit angle. Remember they redid it on a Clash of Champions in 1990, but they'd done it first in 1978. That was the first big angle between Flair and Steamboat. Ric Flair, the Nature Boy, comes to Raleigh TV with the fucking three-piece suit on and the championship belt. I think he was U.S. champion at the time, and the two women dressed up on his arm and talking about how he was a limousine flying, jet riding, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing son of a gun. And look at Ricky Steamboat. He's fucking putz, right? He's just like all of you people. He doesn't have any money. He doesn't have the women. He doesn't fly in the planes. He's just like you. And every fucking body at that time in the Carolinas, he wasn't an icon then. He showed up 3 years earlier and was a smart mouth punk, and everybody wanted to see Ric Flair get his ass kicked. And here came Ricky Steamboat and kicked Ric Flair's ass for the people. What they wanted to do or wanted to say and couldn't, he did it. And in the process, and I know this was just, I wasn't there, but I know this was just Flair and Steamboat sitting there talking. Because Flair, and it was probably their angle to begin with, because George Scott really just let the top guys tell him what they wanted to do. But basically, instead of just beating him up, Steamboat stripped Flair's suit off. But he stripped him down to his fucking skivvies, down to his underwear, with the tie was still around his neck and like the shirt collar. And then he was wearing those fucking $500 shoes and dress socks and some fucking skivvies. And it looked hilarious, and the people were busting a gut laughing. And Flair was mortified, and he was embarrassed, and he went ballistic, and he swore he'd get even, and blah, blah, blah. And what happened? He did get even. Wasn't that the preamble to when they wore the skin off Steamboat's face on the concrete floor?
That's right. Yeah, they burned his face.
Flair fucking gets him down, and was it Ole and Gene maybe were along with him, or whoever the fuck it was? I know Gene did the facial. But they rubbed Steamboat's face into the concrete floor, the rough concrete. And then you see Ricky Steamboat come out, that handsome guy with that great looking smile. And he's literally got no skin on one side of his face, just this giant scab. They took it off with fucking sandpaper in the locker room. But it drew money because people believed that shit. When the fans would have their picture taken with him at the goddamn arena, they would look and see that it was a giant fucking scab. Ric Flair, in response to the embarrassment, that comedic moment, that fucking funny shit, tried to disfigure Ricky Steamboat. That was what they sold. And that's why it sold out every building in the fucking territory. It's not just, hey, this spot would be funny. Let's put that in the match. Or, boy, they'd love it if we did this. It was deeper than that. Even the goddamn, and they bring up the fucking turtle, right? Every time I say an invisible hand grenade and 8 guys take a bump in a fucking match and all ought to be shot, lined up against the wall, just every single one of them, pick them back up again and shoot them again, just make sure you didn't miss. Fuck you, Chuck Taylor, Kentucky. He's got to be from Southern Indiana. Anyway, they bring up, Cornette wrestled a turtle. Once again, context is key. Besides the fact that it wasn't the main event at fucking the Night of Legends at Knoxville Civic Coliseum, the thought process, once again, and this wasn't new, and this wasn't even the first turtle in wrestling, nor was this the first time that a manager has had a match where the idea is to be embarrassed. We just referenced Heenan. Brian Hildebrand, as you know, was a trained professional. He went to Dom DiNucci's wrestling school. He was in the same class as Shane Douglas and Mick Foley, and he was the best worker probably of the bunch of them. It just, Mother Nature shorted him, and he was 5'6" and 140 pounds, but he was in tremendous physical condition, had great spring in his legs, no body fat, great drop kick. He could work. But if you put a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle suit on him, he looked like some little schlub in a fucking turtle suit, right? And so for some of these summer shows, I remember we did it at a couple of county fairs and once in Morristown when I think it was Kids Night. Jim Cornette, the manager, is forced to face Cowabunga, the Mutant Ninja Turtle. And I come out and I am expressing my dismay at not only having to wrestle, but what in the world is a Cowabunga, the Mutant Ninja Turtle? And out comes the turtle. And he's a little guy in a turtle suit. And of course, this is ridiculous. Smoky Mountain Wrestling is trying to make me look like an idiot. I am not going to wrestle a midget in a turtle suit or whatever this whole scam is. And then, of course, the people and the turtle goad me. All right, I'll fix you because I've got 50 pounds. No, shit. I had 75 pounds on Hildebrand if I had an ounce. I got 75 pounds and 6 inches on this turtle. So I'm just going to teach this turtle a lesson that you people ought to learn. And then the turtle proceeds to out-wrestle me because I'm a fat, loudmouth manager and I can't wrestle, and the turtle really can, and that's the fucking comedy. And it's me being frustrated because this little small turtle is beating me up. And finally I cheat and I get a little fucking heat on him so he can make a comeback. And by the way, Brian's comebacks were good, and his drop kick would put you down whether you wanted to go or not. And the turtle beats Jim Cornette, and I'm upset, and I'm embarrassed, and everybody's laughing. And then I come back out in the main event, and I whack one of the top baby faces over the head with a fucking racket. I don't know what is it that is difficult to understand for these people. Is it just the fact that they've never seen wrestling presented seriously and properly, that we're so far removed from the quality of the product taking a nosedive that these people think this is what this shit is supposed to be? Or can they not understand context? Or what exactly is it, do you think?
I don't know if they care too much about the context. I mean, I haven't seen too many people use the turtle card like in an intelligent manner. It's never like, well,
yeah, here's a picture of you wrestling a turtle.
Yeah, it's never like, can we discuss this? Like, seriously, what's the difference in this and this? It's always like, you wrestle the turtle. Fuck you.
Okay, I'm gonna make one challenge, and then we're gonna wind this program up. And I can't wait till next week's program because I want AEW to prove me wrong. I want those guys to go out there and fucking tear the house down, not do any stupid, silly, phony shit, and fucking leave the seats in flames with their amazing athleticism and their quality pro wrestling. But I will challenge anybody on the AEW roster, on the WWE roster, or on any other roster in the known civilized world. I'm not going to fucking Saudi Arabia, so not that roster. Sell 23,000 tickets to see you get put in a diaper and fed a baby bottle in a fucking Superdome. And you can criticize my knowledge of how to use comedy in wrestling. Until you do that, I know more about how to use comedy in wrestling than you do. 23,000 tickets. Doesn't even matter the building. Doesn't have to go to the Superdome. Superdome's not looking too good these days. AEW, sell 23,000 tickets to a show where a guy is put in a diaper as a result of the stipulation of your main event, and I'll put it over because nobody has that much fucking heat. That's how you use comedy in wrestling. If you're going to laugh at somebody, they have to be redeemed afterwards if they're a heel. In other words, in order to get their final comeuppance. And you don't laugh at the baby faces, you laugh with them. God, it's like I told Danny Davis one time in 2004. I said, I either need 5 minutes or 5 years with the WWE writing staff, because anything in between won't do either one of us any good. It'll just piss me off. Anyway, you think they'll add any extra added matches on that AEW card? Because I was really hoping for something.
I'm hoping they had pockets.
Oh, fuck. I'd really like to see Moxley in something serious. I'd like to see Moxley in a big match with Dustin. Or where's Dustin on the card? Where is Jericho? Where's he at?
Like I said, I thought it was a middle of the road, like a transition show between pay-per-view 1 and pay-per-view 2.
Okay, but there's no excuse for just booking just schlub job guys on a fucking, if you've got that much money, you can always find quality talent.
Jericho's working his own program on Twitter where he says that he's pulling out of the show, and, obviously he'll probably show up and do a run-in. And
well, I want to see Moxley in something serious. I'm not going to fucking eviscerate him if he has trouble, pulling the backyard goof through anything. I'm looking forward to seeing Chris Daniels' match, the multiple person matches once again, and we'll see what. Hopefully, this will be JR and an unmasked Excalibur as two good announcers instead of JR, an amateur, and a masked goof as one good announcer and two distractions. Have we heard anything about this?
I haven't heard anything, but I haven't heard anything that leads
You couldn't put a microphone in front of Alex Marvez again.
Oh, they're going to. They absolutely are going to.
Anyway, folks, I hope I've cleared up a few things this week, and if I haven't, fuck you. And for everybody else, can tune in next week and listen to me talk about this thing, because I can already tell there's going to be some things I like and some things I don't. But we will see if they figure out a way to actually offend me with anything else they put in the ring. That I'm not holding out the baby oil guy in a hardcore match. Also, is the other guy a hardcore? Is there a reason for it? Is he a deathmatch wrestler?
I've never heard of the other guy before in my life, so I couldn't tell you.
All right, we'll see what happens, folks. That's what you want out of a brand new wrestling promotion. People you've never heard of, and they don't tell you why you should care. Until then, for everybody, including me and Brian, thanks again, folks. If you love me, I love you back. Cult of Cornette members, you guys are the bee's knees. If you don't like me, I could give two shits and a hoot. And for the rest of you, thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.